Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast, where we're going to be speaking with Keaton Rogers from an awesome rock band out of Los Angeles called Raised on TV. You're listening to the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. The Powered by Rock podcast was created to help showcase some of the best rock musicians in the world and to pass on to future generations the rock music that has inspired rock fans around the world for decades. We want listeners to be able to hear great stories and life experiences directly from their favorite artists, as well as dig deeper into music theory and talk rock like no other show you've ever heard. This isn't about looking cool, it's about getting real and having a great time. Without further ado, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast. Today's show is going to be a lot of fun because I get to catch up with a new friend that we just met earlier this year when a chance Instagram message from Keaton led me to listening to Raised on TV's music and me finding out that they're absolutely awesome and have a new album being released this year called Fernando. We even did an artist spotlight interview with Keaton that you can go check out on poweredbyrock.com. And so without further ado, welcome to the show, Keaton.
Oh, what's up, Isaac? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. So
yeah,
since the last time we talked, you've had some different things going on, but one of the cool things that actually happened was you had a project where you were basically on the same set as David Hasselhoff. Shed some light on how that came about and kind of what you've been up to since we've last talked, and how was the Hoff you met him?
Yeah, the Hoff, man. So yeah, we ended up doing this thing where during the summer, David Hasselhoff was shooting 3 different music videos for his new album. And we had a friend who was hired on to be the guitar player. So he brought me and Casey in. Casey's the drummer of Raised on TV because they needed to fill those spots. So yeah, like it was kind of like on a last minute kind of notice. I think we found out 2 days before. And then so all of a sudden we're on set with David Hasselhoff. And I was actually playing keyboards and Casey was drumming for his backing band. And I think a couple of the videos are out now. One was, they're all covers. He covered the song The Passenger and Sweet Caroline, some random stuff, man. But yeah, it was hilarious.
Did you actually have to play it, or were you just pretending to play?
I mean, it was kind of like a little bit of both, you know. It was a music video, so you could get away with, you know, hitting a lot of wrong notes. But you had to look like you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. And being a musician, I'm pretty sure you have piano and keyboard on some of your tracks from the earlier stuff.
Yeah, we have a lot more piano and keyboard than we did when we first started out, for sure.
Yeah, cool. So before we get into,
it was crazy, man. He's quite a guy.
I bet. I mean, internationally famous, so he's got to have some sort of character.
Oh yeah, man. There's just one drum fill in one of the songs that was super complicated because I think like a computer played it, but he wanted Casey to nail this one fill for whatever reason. So whenever that fill would come up, it was tough. So Casey would mess it up. And then David Hasselhoff, he would just like cut the whole production and like put a lot of pressure on Casey. Like, hey man, you got to get this fill. You got to get it just right, man. If you're not going to do it for you, do it for me, the Hoff. And then I was like, all right, here we go. Let's do it again. And then he finally got it. And then like David Hasselhoff was so proud, so pleased.
Yeah, that's it was he must be doing like a spotlight on that during the actual music video or something, because there'd be no reason for that.
There was a close-up. There's a close-up. It's like a kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's pretty cool. Well, then maybe at least Casey will get some notice and some notoriety from that.
I hope so, man. He got,
if nothing else, at least the Hoff knows who he is.
Yeah, the Hoff knows him and respects him, so you can't really ask for much more in this life.
Cool. I like how he refers to himself as the Hoff too.
Yeah, he does, man. It's no joke. Like he's like a walking myth. You know? He's a living myth. It's quite a thing.
Yeah. Cool. So let's get kind of back into, obviously we've talked already, but I want to get into some pretty good topics today. Before we get into that, you know, for people who didn't actually hear the artist spotlight that we did, I'd like to get some information about you guys, how you kind of came about. What was the reason you first started playing music in the first place? What were some of the artists and influences you had? And what was the reason that you chose this? Why was this the path that you chose for the rest of your life, or at least you know, your early adult life anyway?
Yeah, for sure. Where should I begin?
As far back as you can remember.
Oh man.
And
Okay.
not like the jerk where it was like, I grew up a poor black child or something like that.
I'm not a bum. I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic. For me, I think back on middle school, junior high school, and I remember I went to a Blink-182 and Green Day concert. I think at the time it was called the Pop Disaster Tour,
Yeah. I
and I
remember
was
that
like
tour.
13.
It was too far away for me to ever get to, but I remember the tour.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember I was a kid at that, and yeah, I mean, I had so much fun, and it definitely got me on a path of like wanting to play guitar and wanting to have my own band. I was definitely, I mean, I was into music before that, but I
Were
feel
you
like,
just like looking at him going like, that shit looks really easy. I can do that.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I can do that. I can play what those guys are playing. And then, yeah, then I went to, other shows where the guys were like, playing way more complicated stuff. I'm like, oh, maybe I gotta actually practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Blink, I mean, back then it was kind of awesome. They were able to get away with like not practicing, that
Yeah.
was like that was part of what made them cool. But
Yeah.
that obviously changed later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that show is definitely kind of a game changer for me. And then I went to a Foo Fighters show a little bit after that, and I feel like that show also kind of really got me into it. And I mean, of course, so yeah, going to live shows, going to just concerts of all kinds when I was a kid was a big deal for me. I feel like, and really kind of not only, I mean, I love the music, I love listening to the music, but I really kind of loved the atmosphere.
Mhm.
Um, just being at a show and being around other people that, for them, that music also kind of made them feel alive, made them
Yeah.
feel something really special.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's weird
yeah,
when like 40, 50,000 people all have the same interests and they're all jammed into one small area and just smashing into each other.
yeah, no, yeah, it really is a special thing. It really is an
Yeah.
awesome thing, and that there's something about it that's just so fun and so cool and so electric, and it makes you feel alive. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of where it started for me to want to have my own band, and
Yeah.
to really kind of just like take it as far as I could and do it as much as I could.
That's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, when we spoke in our last interview, so you guys have a two-piece band,
Mhm.
but then I recently saw an Instagram post where you mentioned you were playing with a new member, a bass player named Blaine Billingsley.
That's right.
Is he going to be a permanent addition to the band? And how did he come to play with you guys?
I mean, if Blaine's down, then Blaine is in. So Blaine, if you're listening, you can be a permanent member. Yeah, he's
We
actually
don't pay nothing, but you're in.
yeah, he's my cousin.
Nice.
So we go way back, and we never played a show together. And he's a great player. He's mostly a guitar player, but he moved to LA, so we played that show, and yeah, it was super fun. And we're talking about doing more. So yeah, it's kind of we're gonna see where it goes. But yeah, if Blaine's into being a permanent member, we'd be definitely into having him be a full time kind of
Nice.
member.
So,
Yeah.
how much practice did you guys have to have before that show?
We should have had a lot more than we did. We had one practice, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Throw
it's
him in
kind
the fire, like, hey, don't fuck up, man.
yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, we were trying to get more practices in, but people were busy or whatever. Me and Casey always practiced a couple times a week, but we got one in with Blaine, and then on the drive to the show in our van, we were doing like a cram session where we were going through every song, and Blaine was doing his best to memorize what the chords were, and
Yeah.
we got most of it right.
Yeah. Well, and the good thing about bass is if you kind of get lost, you just look at where the guitar player's hands are and just play the root note of that. And you're like,
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
figure it out as long as there's not too
Yeah,
many chord changes too fast. And I don't forget that.
exactly. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, I played toward him the whole time. So
Yeah. Like, hey, look over here.
yeah, and then yeah,
Everybody in the audience is like, what are you guys doing up there?
we're just
But
jamming, man.
yeah. No,
Just
that's cool. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it was a super fun show.
that's one of those things like when you find somebody who fits the band, it's like it can actually change a dynamic in the band as well. It's not just like one of those things where it's like, oh, come in, just fill in, like play these notes or whatever. But you get more
Totally.
energy on stage, you get more energy in practice, you get the changing of dynamic. And anybody who
Absolutely.
plays bass, even if it's a guitar player playing bass, which, you know, a lot of bands do this. I mean, Royal Blood, their lead singer, he plays bass, but he's like, I was a guitar player and piano player
Yeah,
pretending to play bass. Then I became a bass player. So,
super common. Yeah.
um, you know, it's one of those things that you get a different feel from the music by having bass in a song or in a
You really do. You nailed it. I mean, and yeah, whoever's on stage, like whatever they're gonna, whatever they bring is gonna have an effect on the whole show. Even if
yeah,
it's like a lot of people think bass is really simple, and sometimes it is, but that's the instrument's not the whole thing. Though it's how it's your vibe on stage,
yeah,
and how you play off people, and it affects the music, and then it also affects how people feel in the audience, and
yeah,
yeah, so it can go two ways. If you got someone with a bad attitude up there, um,
yeah,
then yeah, people feel it, and
yeah,
we've definitely we've had both.
yeah.
So
And I think, you know, everybody says, oh, like, you know, bass players get a bad rap. It's not like the most important thing in the band or whatever. And it might not be, but I will say that when you take bass out of a song or out of a live show or something, you
yeah,
don't feel the music in a live,
no,
like you actually physically can feel a bass like reverberating, right? So you
absolutely,
don't
yeah.
actually get to feel that without the bass. Like you can feel a kick drum, but that's about the only thing. And that's just like a thump,
Mhm.
thump, 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 whatever, right?
Totally. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need the bass. You need the
Yeah.
bass. Even if the part's simple, like you're saying, it's so important. It's so
Yeah.
integral.
Yeah.
Just like the drums, you
Yeah.
need it. You need it. The bass holds it down.
Exactly. So I know it's usually pretty easy to like label bands as certain genres of the overall rock category. And, you know, I struggle to put you guys into a specific subcategory, which I personally like, but I
Yeah,
know it sometimes can be a bit of a curse when it comes to getting promoted and finding an audience. Have you
sure.
found that for yourself, or do you have a good way to explain your music? Personally, I just like call it rock music because that's
Yeah,
the way I think it is. But some people may not find that good enough to jump over and listen to you since the category is
yeah,
kind of broad, right?
sure. I mean, I feel like I go through that same struggle of like trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to describe it, but yeah, I mean, I would say we're definitely. I mean, we're rock for sure, but we're kind of. It's a subcategory. It's kind of like some sort of indie rock where it can be very melodic.
Yeah.
It can have a lot of chord changes and a lot of trippy kind of psychedelic sounds with the guitars mostly. But then also, yeah, we can be very edgy, very loud, very aggressive at times too, depending on what kind of stuff we're playing. Like our second album, I would say, was probably the edgiest that we've done so far. So when we play songs off of that, there's really big guitars, really big
Yeah.
distorted guitars, and but then when we play stuff off of our more recent album or our first album, it's a little more laid back.
Yeah.
So you kind of get like a different vibe. So yeah, there's a lot of variety, I guess, to our sound.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And the last time we talked, I was kind of like struggling to like kind of think of bands that you sounded like. And I don't really like to compare bands, but to get
sure.
somebody who never heard of you to like understand what the sound might be like, you know, you
Yeah,
mentioned the Shins, and I think the first album and the newer stuff very much like the Shins, and that's pretty cool. I think the
sure.
the second album is a little bit more like a Jimmy Eat World sound, where it's like
Yeah,
bigger guitars, more fast riffs or something like that.
totally.
And then you kind of maybe throw in like a little Fountains of Wayne in there, kind of across
Yeah,
the board. And I think that's kind of like if people like any of those bands, I think they'll like you. And you know, I
yeah.
freaking love
Thanks, man.
Jimmy Eat World. I know you're a
Me too.
fan of the Shins. What I used to, I mean, obviously Fountains of Wayne was a band that I used to listen to when I was growing up, and
Oh
I think
yeah,
it was like the lead singer or guitar player or something actually recently died of cancer, which is super sad. But
that's right.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, didn't he
um,
didn't he write the song to That Thing You Do?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Pretty
that's
crazy. Yeah.
super catchy.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
do that, yeah,
Yeah.
that
He
one.
was a great songwriter.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, does that kind of like when you hear those names? I'm curious. Have you ever thought like, is that kind of what it is? And a lot of the songs you make are kind of mellow, right? So first, answer this question: is that kind of the sound you kind of trigger when people are coming? And then I got a follow up question once you
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
that.
sure. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, those bands that you named are totally influences on us, on me. Jimmy Eat World in particular. Remember, they played the Pop Disaster tour. Actually, they
Yeah.
opened up for
How crazy is that
Blink.
freaking lineup too?
So insane. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
rad.
and Blink 182, I saw Mark Hoppus on an episode, the very first episode of Jim Adkins from Jimmy Eat World. He has a podcast, and
Oh, he
Mark
does?
Hoppus was the first guest. Yeah,
On the way.
and And I can't remember what it's called. It's like Sound Waves or something like that. I can't remember
Oh,
exactly
cool.
what it's called, but I think it came out like during quarantine, and Mark Hoppus was on there, and Mark Hoppus was like, "You're like a huge influence on our music," which is crazy because they were like at the same time, like they were coming up at the
Yeah,
same time.
like
And
contemporary. Yeah.
actually, the producer from um, Clarity, I think, from
Oh,
the
okay. Yeah, that was
Jimmy
like one of the early records, right?
did Dude Ranch. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the same guy. So yeah, it was like
Cool.
they got him because they liked the sound of Clarity and they wanted to do that on Dude Ranch.
That's rad.
So anyway, I digress.
Cool.
But yeah,
No,
so
no, that was
it's
a
interesting to hear that,
cool digression.
yeah, the
Yeah, that's
interest you
super
have.
cool. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we definitely channeled a lot of Jimmy Eat World. Um, on our second album for sure. I listened to those records so much, and we were going for that in particular. That was a big
Yeah.
part of it. But yeah, I think I'm blanking on like the other part of the question. Sorry.
Well, I haven't got to it yet, so that's the
Okay,
good
so
part.
I would
Yeah.
explain that. You
The
haven't.
other part of the question is, I'm kind of curious. Have you ever thought, because all those sounds, like a lot of the songs that you make are pretty mellow, laid back. There's a little bit of um anger, but it's not like you're
Yeah,
outwardly mad. Have you ever
yeah,
thought about like making a song where you're just pissed off and see what it sounds like?
I've definitely thought about it. Yeah, yeah, we have some new stuff that we're working on, and like a couple of the songs are just kind of like more punk,
Yeah.
angsty, kind of what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Cause I think, there's definitely, you definitely have up tempo songs like DJ Stole My Girl Away,
Oh
Soul
yeah.
on Fire, Don't Look Down. And on that song, I also really like the darker sounding guitar, that little bridge or solo part.
Oh, thanks.
Um, was there something different when you actually were writing that song that felt, you had to have that kind of darker sounding guitar or heavier sounding guitar in there?
And Don't Look Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song. So at that time, that was like kind of one of the few songs that kind of completely came out of like a jam session.
Hmm.
Because most of the songs for Raised on TV, I write, and then I
By
bring to the
yourself.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bring back in the day, I bring them to the garage, and then we put them together. But that song was a song that completely came out of the garage, and so I feel like maybe that's why it was kind of just
Interesting.
it was all in the moment. It was all kind of live, and then we fine tuned it over
Yeah.
over some time. But
So you didn't play it perfectly the first time? What the hell, man?
I
That's
know,
just great.
I know, not cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably why it's different. I would
Yeah.
now that I think about it.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, when I hear that, I can't remember exactly how the guitar goes in that song because I'm like, I have to hear the song to remember it. But I
Yeah,
just
sure.
remember it being like a there's like a little bit of a breakdown. It kind of like just starts to descend down. It's like it makes like a
That's right.
descending
That's
kind of
right.
noise, and it's like this is heavier. And I think that's probably why because when you have people in the room, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to write like a sad song, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to write
Right.
a depressing song around a bunch of people. But when
Sure.
you're in the
Sure.
moment, you're going to write kind of maybe like a more energetic song or something.
Totally. Yeah. It came out of a jam.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask kind of like what's your process when you go into writing music? Because I've talked to other artists and is it kind
Yeah.
of like a spontaneous thing where you just have an idea and then you like go
Yeah.
run, find paper and start writing, or you kind of have to put yourself in the right situation with a certain ambiance to get in the mood to write?
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like it's been a lot of different things over the years. And then I've changed it up sometimes too. But yeah, a lot of the time I kind of I'll come up with a piece of music, whether it's on the guitar or on
Mhm.
the piano, and I'll kind of have some chord changes that I like, maybe a melody, and I just kind of, I'll just sit on my guitar, sit on the piano, and just play. And then, you know, doesn't mean something's going to come out of it, but when it does, then I kind of hold on to it, and I try to write lyrics, or I like to write lyrics outside. I like to go to the park or something, or if I'm in the car driving, I'll play it on the stereo, and I try to write lyrics that way because then I'm kind of in a different frame of mind,
Yeah.
Or I used to do this thing where I'd go on my bicycle and I'd listen to songs in my headphones that I wrote, just demos of them, and kind of write that way. And then I'd stop somewhere and then write all that stuff down.
Put it down in like notes on your phone or something.
Yeah, or like yeah, my notebook, like
Yeah.
like a high school kid.
That's funny
Yeah,
because I
I haven't
actually
done
kind
a
of do
lot.
the same thing. I ride my bike every morning and
Really?
I'm like, I have a good idea for a song. where the hell am I going to write something? Because I don't have
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
with me, but I'll like
Oh,
start
that's
typing
cool.
something in my phone to remember it for later. But
Yeah,
that's interesting.
that's cool. Yeah, I feel like there's something about being on the bike that kind of gets your mind going in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, maybe because you're so focused on like not getting hit by a car and like and there's so many dangers around you, but you kind of go in this like an instinctive kind of mode or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I haven't done that in a while. Like what I've been doing recently is I've been going in our studio and I've been kind of making these tracks. I've been making tracks with the keyboard and a guitar, and then like a totally different process where I kind
Yeah.
of I'll start the song on keyboard, not guitar, and then kind of see where it takes me. And yeah, it surprises me most of the time because I used to always be a very guitar centered kind of musician and songwriter. So
Mhm.
it always started on the guitar. So, whatever it was. And it was usually stuff would come out kind of singer songwriter because it's me on an acoustic guitar, coming up with words and singing it. And the songs would kind of come out that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've kind of been liking doing this other way where I kind of make a track and I'm not trying to think about what it should be or what it's supposed to be, just kind of letting it come out however it's going to come out. And it's not always good. Like sometimes I don't like it,
Yeah.
but sometimes when it is cool, like it really kind of surprises me. Like I'm not entirely sure where it came from, and
Yeah.
that's really cool. Because the other way, I kind of feel like I know where it's coming from. I'm trying to
Mhm.
channel like an emotion or a feeling, or either it could be good or bad, but it's very specific. Like I'm trying to pull from this thing within me and make a song out of it. But the other way, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I've been doing recently. It's kind of I like it. It's different.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because like I'll look back on songs I've written or poems that I've written and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember writing that. I have no idea. That seems better than my skill level. Like, well, how did I do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Makes
yeah,
no
yeah,
sense.
that same idea. Yeah, you don't know where it came from.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
So you have two albums fully released, and then you have a third one coming out. So, and I think obviously, season one was the first album. Season two was the second one, which is aptly named for a band called Raised on TV. Pretty
right,
clever
yeah.
branding.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank
you feel like you have a bigger meaning though. Like to me, it seems like for most TV shows, season one is like the character building season,
you.
and
Mhm.
season two is when things get a little bit more hectic or chaotic or more dramatic,
Yeah,
and it's just more of everything, right? Was
yeah.
this kind of like a bit of like the feeling you got from the first to the second album, or was it just a bit of continuity you wanted to keep going with?
Um, yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
It was definitely some continuity, just kinda keeping that pattern going, and then, yeah, also, I feel like with the first album, we just kinda didn't really know what we were going for, and we got into a studio, and we tracked, like, pretty much the whole album in 3 days, and then kinda went back for vocals and whatever overdubs we did. So it was, like, really just kinda quick, we just kinda banged it out, and it was like, that was our sound,
Yeah.
for better or for worse, like, that's how we sounded. And then in the second album, we had time and kind of stepped back. We got into some other studios, maybe, more expensive, nicer studios. One was Dave Grohl's studio, 606.
Oh,
That
nice.
was really cool. So we took our time and we really kind of tried to think of what we were going for and craft a more polished kind of sound. So that was the big difference between season one and season two. And
Yeah.
then the
Bigger
third album,
production.
bigger, yeah, big time, bigger production. More money was spent. Um, and then with this most recent album, which we're going to release November 19th of this year,
Awesome.
we have a
About
date.
friggin' time, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Actually.
It's too long, man. We got to put it out. We got to get it
Yeah.
out. Been sitting on it for too long. Yeah, I mean, the third album was a whole nother world for us because the band changed. We lost our third member because he quit. He's fine. It's not like nothing happened, but he quit the band, and it became me and Casey mostly. So it just kind of things shifted, things changed, but we kept it on the tracks, and we had all these new songs. I wrote a bunch of songs when we were touring after season two, and then the pandemic happened. We were about to get in the studio and record with a producer, and the pandemic happened, and then I mean that changed so much for us as a band because not only could we play live, which happened to every band, but it kind of changed how we were going to record too, because
Yeah.
no studios were open for a while, and we had all this stuff that we wanted to track. So we really kind of got back into just self-recording at that time, and having our own studio. And it was something I did a long time ago, and I kind of gave it up. And then the pandemic kind of forced me to get back into that,
Yeah.
and to kind of learn and relearn, a lot of audio engineering and mixing and things like that.
Yeah.
So
It
it
can
was,
be a pain in the butt to try to figure it all out at first too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, big time. But it ended up being like really, really cool and rewarding, and we kind of really felt like we got what we were going for the most part. And what we were going for was almost similar to the first album in a way, where it was just kind of like a very gritty garage rock kind of sound. But we felt like the songs were better, maybe.
Mhm.
So it was almost like we were restarting as a band in some ways. And I think that's why we didn't name it season 3, because it was kind of a restart.
Yeah.
So we named it Fernando, which is named after the San Fernando Valley, which is where we live and where we grew up. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, I guess that's kind of the flow from those 3 albums, how things
Yeah.
changed.
It's funny because I don't know if I took direct inspiration from it after hearing some of the, listening to your guys' albums, but I'm one of my things is I actually do branding for like a living for in my day job, I guess.
Oh, really?
But I was like, that's pretty cool. Like they called it season 1, season 2, and for a band called Raised on TV. So for this podcast, instead of saying it's, like um, the 2021, episodes or whatever, I say it's the 2021 tour for
Yeah.
this block of ones that are coming out in 2021. Next year, all those will be in the next season, which will be the 2022 tour. So I was
Oh,
like, that's pretty on brand thing. So let's do that. So
I
I
like
thought that was, it was inspiring to see good branding throughout another thing happening around me at the same
that.
time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So we talked about like some of the more up tempo songs. I always come back to DJ Stole My Girl Away because that one, it might
Yeah.
be the poppiest song you guys
Yeah.
probably have.
It is. It is.
um, but do you prefer writing kind of like the more like melancholy songs? Do you like writing poppier songs? How do you try to stay? Because
Yeah.
I think at some point people are like, well, I don't want to be considered like a pop artist, right? So you don't want to, you
Right.
still want to be an indie, kind of have that edge, but
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you still want to be able to write up tempo songs. And do you kind of like understand like there's a limit you have to achieve, or do you just not care and just write whatever you want?
Um, it's for sure a balance,
Hmm.
because yeah, at least for me, like, because I do care, and so really I come to it in a way where it's not like, whatever comes out, and that is what it is. If it's sad, it's sad. If it's happy, it's happy. Sometimes I'll do that, like once in a while, you just gotta kind of let it flow
Yeah.
artistically. But at the same time, if you're really trying to build a fan base and keep a fan base, you're making a product too. So you can't you can't get too crazy
Yeah.
unless you're kind of starting a new project or a new band.
Yeah. That's why
Um,
people always start solo careers, right?
yeah, or side projects or
Yeah.
whatever. But I also think there's something to be said about evolving, as a band and as
Hmm.
an artist. Um, so yeah, at least with Raised on TV, I mean, we've really tried to kind of we do both, I guess. We'll think about what we're trying to make, and then sometimes we won't. Sometimes we just kind of make whatever we want to make. But we definitely do kind of keep it in mind that we're trying to make something that the fans we already have are going to like, and that will also hopefully kind of make new fans for us that will just like our band and like our stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I try to write, whatever it means to write a good song. I try to write the best songs that I can. And there definitely is a craft to it. There definitely is an art form to songwriting,
Yeah.
in the same way there is to playing an instrument. Songwriting is to me, it's like a lifelong sort of craft. I mean, I feel like songwriters, if they keep going with it, um, professional and hobbyist songwriters, like you kind of you get better and better, and you learn what it means to really kind of like dig into emotions that you have,
Yeah.
and and explore them, and then find out how you can make that a song.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think there's even like a tipping point where at some point some of the really really successful songwriters kind of stop trying because they've reached a certain level of fame, and then they start degrading their brand or watering down
yeah,
their talent. Super like
yeah,
you imagine how good like John Mayer's last album could have been if he really really tried, right? Like
mm,
I'm not gonna rip him on too much, but I'm like, you're an amazing guitar player. You can write great songs. What the hell is Sob Rock, man? Like you could have done better. It could have been so
right.
much better.
Well, yeah, I feel like, I mean, you definitely find formulas, as a
Yeah,
songwriter, and if you find one that works, maybe maybe when you find one that works really well, and it's made you a lot of money and it's been really successful, so you can kind of just fall back on that formula.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
remember Dave Grohl actually said something like, I can't remember who he said. He said it was like Bruce
then,
Dickinson or something. It was like, we got told by Bruce Dickinson or whoever this person was, the formula to write the perfect rock song. And that was like every song for like the first 3 albums or something
yeah,
like that. I was like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. It's a
Yeah.
real thing. But yeah, I feel like songwriters and bands can find a formula, and then either you kind of fall back on that time and time again until it kind of gets old and wears out, or you try to find a new formula and build upon the older ones and find something new, and just kind of you keep going. And maybe maybe I feel like if you keep going with that and kind of you keep pushing yourself as a songwriter, you do get better.
Yeah.
You might go down some weird paths and do some weird stuff, but I definitely admire that when songwriters do that, when they really try to,
Yeah.
they might
Yeah.
have
And I
had
think
a good song,
th-
and when they
this
push
is
it.
why nobody but me likes my music, because I just try to write something different every single time. And it's like,
Really?
nobody else likes this. Nobody else likes when you transition all this stuff. It's like so different from the last thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is just the way I wanted to write a song this time. And I like, oh, I threw a ska song in here for some reason. Why? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
feeling it. Yeah. I mean, it can be tough for people to understand,
yeah.
It's a lot to
But
think about.
so you guys are actually obviously able to play shows now. You've played a
Yeah.
few.
Well, yeah, we
Uh,
played 5 or 6 since, reopening.
yeah, how's that going? And what's the kind of plan? I mean, obviously, you guys are probably going to set up are you going to be like doing like a regional tour soon or?
Um, yeah, it's going well. It's going well. And we had some really cool shows, and then we also played, like, some really random shows. We played, like, a college backyard party that was super fun,
I
and
think I
then
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, and then I think it was the same weekend we played this big outdoor festival show, and there were, like, thousands of people there. So it was kind of fun to be at one show that was like that, and then the next night you're at a backyard playing for college kids.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of been our experience since reopening, and we're getting out to Phoenix and Las Vegas later in October. I think the weekend
Nice.
of October 22nd. We're going
Perfect.
to do a little weekend run, just to get back, to get back out there in the van, and even if it's just for a couple shows, it's a quick run, and even if we don't make a lot of money or any money, we're going to get
Yeah.
back out there just to do it.
Do you know where you're playing in Las Vegas?
We're going to play on Fremont Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in downtown.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Friday night, October
Excellent.
22nd.
Perfect. Well, if you haven't booked a hotel, you can obviously crash here, throw you
Oh,
in
thanks,
our
man.
spare room. So yeah.
All right. I'll remember you said that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Um, yeah. I'll shoot you, just email me or I'll shoot you my phone number via email after this if you actually
All right,
want
thanks,
to
buddy.
do it. But
Cool.
yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. Like when I've talked to so many artists. They're like, yeah, touring, you make the money that you spend on the hotel room, or you make the money that you spend on eating to get to the next place or whatever. It's like
Oh, yeah.
you don't make a ton of money when you tour unless you're
Yeah,
selling a lot of merch or the
sure,
headliner or something like that of like a decent
sure.
sized venue.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think artists have to travel, right? Because you can't stay in your own place and expect
Uh-huh.
to get reach everywhere else. You need to be visible in other
True.
places, in different venues, at different, like, play a beer fest or instead of, just playing bars, for example, brings out a
Yeah.
different crowd, right? So like
Yeah,
middle-aged people who are just drinking all day, like
big
day
time.
drinking crowd's way
We
cooler
played a
than
lot of those. We played a lot of those type we love those beer fest shows, beer
yeah,
gardens,
yeah,
beer tents.
yeah.
Yeah, Fire do you
Ye-
know Firestone Walker, the
yeah, I
brewery?
know Firestone Walker. Yeah.
They sponsored one of the last tours that we did before COVID.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it was so cool. Our
So
our band
did
was
you get
filled
a drink
mostly
for
with
free or
beer.
did they just sponsor the tour?
We got the drink for free. We got like a bunch of clothing and shirts. So
Yeah.
the deal was they would supply us with beer for the whole tour, and we would wear like shirts and hats from them on stage, like
Nice.
happily, because we liked them a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super rad. But yeah,
Yeah.
with what you're saying about touring, yeah, it's most of the time as an indie band or an up and coming artist, you're gonna either lose money or maybe you just break even.
Yeah.
And breaking even is a win.
Yeah.
And then yeah, maybe you can learn the indie circuit to a point where you do profit, but it's probably not gonna be what you'd make at home at your
Regular
regular
job.
day job.
Yeah.
But but you're profiting, you're not in the hole. And
Yeah.
that's a huge win as an indie band.
Yeah.
But, I think, I mean, people have different schools of thought on this, but especially now in the modern world, but I think it's super important for a band, to tour, especially when it's gritty and you're not making money because, yeah, you travel, you play to new audiences, it tests you, it challenges you, it takes you to your limit, and you kinda see what you're made of, you
Yeah.
know? Like, we've been in so many crazy situations because of touring, because of indie touring. The van breaks down at 2 AM. What do you do? Where are you? What you
You're
know?
not a mechanic by trade? No?
I definitely know a lot more than I did
Yeah.
about how vans in particular work.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so you have to it develops your problem solving skills,
Yeah.
develops your people skills, it develops your social skills. I mean, and then of course playing on stage, like you get so much better as a band, as an artist.
Yeah.
Um, it There's nothing else quite like it. Like you can practice all day long, but it's never going to compare to like being in a game.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
intensity.
Well, not
So
only
yeah,
that, but like people think like, oh, the best way to become a musician these days is go on American Idol and try out, right? It's like,
yeah, sure,
what
sure.
what the hell? Like,
Or
no, that's not being a musician. That's a
no,
singer in a singing competition, right?
yeah, that's being a star, or
Yeah.
you know,
So
trying to be a
yeah,
star.
I think,
Totally.
and I think even Dave Grohl said it once. He said, there's something about playing in your own garage and then going out and then doing that in front of people that
Yeah.
without anybody really watching other than the people in that room. Like
Mhm,
nobody's watching you on TV. And there's no fanfare. Like
mhm.
the people that can do that are the people that can live doing that and put up with that for multiple years are usually the people that will be successful at it.
For sure.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. And yeah, like it can be rough. It can be really rough and like it can kick your ass.
Yeah.
So you kind of find out pretty quick if you love it or not.
Yeah.
So I feel like the bands that have done that, that did that, and then became really successful later on, I think they found out, within themselves that they loved it. So they kept going until they did find success.
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome. Well, cool. I mean, it's great to have you back, and
Yeah, thanks,
I
Isaac.
can't
Good to be
wait to
back.
see you play live. I mean, I will
Thanks,
definitely be at
man.
the show. I'm actually going to be in Hawaii for a week in October, but it's before
Oh,
that. So,
oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah,
Okay. Well, let's be in
yeah,
touch, man.
yeah, for sure. And then we'll see if I can bring some people to the show and get a group of people to actually come watch you. But
Oh,
yeah, I
thanks,
mean,
Isaac.
it's gonna
That's
be
awesome.
uh gonna be good. I've never actually got to see you live, but I've heard all the songs, and I can't wait for the
Yeah,
new album to come out. We'll obviously drop some
man.
links to the new music, all that other stuff, and the music that season one, season two, and everything into the
Right
show
on.
notes. Do you have anything else that you want to tell people about the band, or if they haven't
Yeah,
checked you out, where to
yeah,
go and all that stuff?
yeah. Thanks, man. Definitely look out for our third album, our new album coming out November 19th, this year. And yeah, check us out on raisedontv.com and definitely stream us on Spotify and wherever else you stream music. Um, and also, we have a new music video coming out a month before the album drops. I forget the date, but that's going to be in a few weeks from
Nice.
recording this right now.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
I
new music
highly recommend
video.
the videos because I talked about this with you before that
Yeah,
because you seem to know people that have some production and some camera skills that they come out pretty good for an independent band.
thanks, man. Yeah, we
Yeah.
know, we know a couple people.
Yeah. I got a
Thank
guy.
you. We got a guy. We got a guy in town. But yeah, new album November 19th. I think that's the main thing we're trying to push. So
Awesome. Well, I'll put those links into the show notes, and obviously when that comes out, it'll actually be about 3 weeks after this comes out. So hopefully there'll be like a pre-save or something on Spotify, a link like that we can put in there for everybody.
Yeah, there will. So yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. So thanks, Keaton. Obviously, I want to thank you for being here. This awesome conversation today. And if you haven't checked out their music yet, make sure to go to the show notes below this episode and check out those links for their music. If you like what you heard on the show today, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends on social media. Also, if you want to check out some of our written content or any of the products or merch that we have available, go to poweredbyrock.com to read our absolutely free rocking blog full of album reviews, interviews, and lists to keep you entertained, and find our gear as well so you can pick up some items to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you next week for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
Rock on.